5. Mamie Thurman. 1932, Logan County, West Virginia. 32-year-old Mamie Thurman was living a double life. To some, she was just the wife of one of the county's policemen. To others, she was a fixture at local speakeasies. It was also rumored that she was having an affair with a local businessman. On June 22, 1932, a boy was picking blackberries when he came across Mamie's body about 15 feet from the road. Her throat had been slit, then she had been shot twice in the head, and her body was badly bruised. There were many suspects, including prominent people in Logan. Another suspect was a handyman employed by the businessman who Mamie was apparently having an affair with. That being said, no one was convicted of the murder. Since her murder, Mamie's ghost has been seen on Holden 22 Mine Road, close to where her body was found. The stories are that coal truck drivers will see a young woman wearing old-fashioned clothes, so they pick her up, but then she vanishes from their cab. Other times, she appears on buses that go to the mountain. At times, she appears to be soaking wet. When they arrive at her stop, she is gone from the bus, but the seat where she sat is wet. 4. Karen Gregory. 36-year-old Karen Gregory had just moved into her boyfriend's home in Gulfport, Florida. Shortly after she moved in, he had to go away on business, leaving Karen home alone. In the early morning of May 23, 1984, neighbors heard a woman screaming, but no one called 911. 2 days later, Karen's boyfriend called the police and asked them to go to the house. Karen hadn't answered the phone or been to work in 2 days. Once in the house, they found a gruesome scene. She had been raped and stabbed to death. For a while, the case sat cold, until 2 years later, when a detective noticed that the neighbor across the yard, firefighter George Lewis, had changed his story a number of times. They looked into him and found that a handprint left at the crime scene matched his. He was arrested, convicted, and given a life sentence despite his claims of innocence. He appealed a number of times, but ultimately died at the age of 52 in prison. As for the house in which Karen was murdered, a new homeowner bought the house and claimed some spooky things happened. For example, there is a brown spot in the hallway where Karen's body laid for 2 days that never comes clean. She would scrub it, but the stain would always come back. Another example is that the intruder came in through a window, and whenever she tries to open the window, it shatters. The owner also claims she has seen a misty face in the mirror behind her. Her mother also heard loud footsteps, like someone running away from an intruder, but no one was in the house. 3. Mildred Ann Reynolds. On March 13, 1956, 23-year-old Mildred Ann Reynolds was supposed to visit her husband for lunch. He worked as a gym coach at the Avard, Oklahoma High School. However, along the way, on a rural road, her car was found in a ditch and it was on fire. Sadly, Reynolds' body was in the front seat and everyone assumed it was a tragic accident that stole the life of a young woman. While examining the scene, there were a few things that were off. Like, her right shoe was covered in blood, and it was found over 250 yards in front of the car. Also, her coat was found 100 feet behind the accident. Then the car had burned through thoroughly, as if it was given help through some type of flammable material. Then it looked as if she could have been driven off the road, as there were witnesses who saw a second car, and there was another set of tracks near the crash scene. Another odd finding was bullet casings that were found near the car. All the evidence seemed to point to murder, but no one was ever arrested in connection with the crime. Since then, her ghost has been spotted at a nearby restaurant opened in 1996 in the location of the old gym where Mildred's husband worked and where she attended school. The owners experienced strange phenomenon. For example, one day sitting at the counter was a young woman in green. The owner went to get a notepad to take the order, and when she returned to the young woman, she was gone. Other times, customers complain about the smell of burning hair. 2. Miles Fawcett. It was New Year's 1888, and Miles Fawcett was invited to Josiah and Elizabeth Potts's home for a party in Carlin, Nevada. That was the last time anyone ever saw Miles. There was some suspicion about the Pottses because they were seen on Miles's property, and they were seen using his sleigh and buggy. The townspeople were sure that the Pottses had something to do with Fawcett's disappearance, so they searched the property, but nothing could be found. In September 1888, the Pottses moved from Carlin to Wyoming, and the Brewer family moved into the old Potts' home. Mrs. Brewer was a correspondent for the Elko Free Press and wrote under the name Busy Bee. On January 5, 1889, she wrote to the paper saying that she believed her house was haunted. The ghost wasn't violent and nothing serious had happened, just a lot of strange noises, like rapping on headboards and banging on doors. However, where most of the noise came from was the cellar where jars of preservatives were being messed with. On January 19th, when the noises from the cellar got to be too much, they investigated, and after a bit of digging, they found some human remains. The body had been cut up and partially burned. Due to items found in his pockets, the body was identified as Miles Fawcett. The Pottses were arrested and sentenced to death. The day before her execution, Elizabeth slit her wrists, but was saved by a doctor. The next day, she and her husband went to the gallows together. Elizabeth was a large woman, and it made for a gruesome hanging. The rope severely cut into her neck, which caused blood to pour over her white dress. Elizabeth Potts is the only woman to ever be executed by the state of Nevada. 1. Cannock Chase Murders. Between December 1, 1964, and August 19, 1967, 4 girls ranging in ages from 5 to 9 were kidnapped, strangled, and their bodies were dumped in Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, England. Out of the 4 girls, only a 9-year-old girl survived. The murders horrified the community, and one of the biggest manhunts in the country's history was initiated. Police were led to 39-year-old Raymond Leslie Morris after his car was used in an attempted abduction of another young girl. They interviewed Morris, who looked like witness descriptions in the other kidnappings. Also, the police had interviewed Morris twice before in regards to the missing children. The first was that about some lurid pictures he had taken with young girls, and the fact that he was the owner of a gray Austin A55 or A60, which was seen at the abduction site of 7-year-old Christine Darby. As a result, he was only convicted of that murder, but police were convinced he had a hand in the murders of 6-year-old Margaret Reynolds and 5-year-old Diana Joy Tift. Their bodies were found together, about 100 yards from the body of Christine Darby. On March 11, 2014, Morris died in prison at the age of 84. Shortly after his death, visitors to Cannock Chase reportedly started seeing black-eyed children in the area. One visitor reportedly heard a little girl giggle and then saw a small child, but her eyes were completely black. Michelle Mason was visiting the forest with her 2 sons when she snapped a picture of her sons in a tree. When looking at the picture later, she made a disturbing discovery. On the far right of the picture, there is the faint image of a young girl with blackened eyes holding a hula hoop. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up on my next video.